Welcome to the deep dive. If you've been following the market, you know that when a company delays its earnings, it usually means two things.
Anxiety and speculation.
Exactly. And today we are focusing on one of the most volatile and frankly anticipated situations in the entire digital asset space. We're talking about the crypto company BMNR. And first, just a quick note for anyone tracking the stock, the ticker is BMNR.
Right, BMNR.
We're focusing on them, not the common misspelling you sometimes see, BMR. So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We want to give you a comprehensive analysis of why this company's earnings announcement is now over 2 months late.
And has become this massive Wall Street mystery.
That's it. So the core conflict we really need to get into is whether this silence is a massive flashing red flag, pointing to some kind of accounting nightmare.
Or the exact opposite.
Or if it's actually strategic rocket fuel, meaning the company is waiting for the perfect moment to drop a game-changing announcement.
Delays this long are, they're extraordinarily unusual in the financial world.
Right.
They create this vacuum that just gets filled instantly by fear and, greed.
Right.
When management holds back critical data for this long, it signals a make-or-break moment. You literally have investors running in two different directions. You have the skeptics who are fearing auditor blowups, huge unforeseen losses, maybe even a full financial restructuring.
The worst case scenario.
The worst case. But on the other side, the believers think the company is waiting to unveil some massive strategic shift, maybe a new platform launch or a huge new capital raise.
And they're just waiting for that perfect moment.
They're waiting for the optimal moment to drop all the good news at once. This polarization is what makes BMNR such an essential deep dive for us right now. The outcome here will define the company's future.
Absolutely. And to really understand the weight of this silence, we first have to understand BMNR's radical business transformation.
Yeah.
You just can't analyze them like a typical crypto mining company anymore because that is fundamentally not what they are.
That's the crucial pivot. They have very consciously moved away from that high-energy, lower-margin business of crypto mining.
So the mining rigs don't really matter anymore.
Well, they might have some legacy operations, but their strategic future, and frankly their entire valuation, is no longer tied to the efficiency of those rigs or the cost of electricity. BMNR has made a radical, and I mean really concentrated, bet on buying and holding a single asset.
Ethereum,
or ETH. Their entire balance sheet has shifted. It is now defined almost entirely by their massive and still growing stack of ETH. This is a complete transformation. They went from an industrial operation to what is essentially a highly leveraged digital asset holding company.
And when we talk about their position, the word massive it barely does it justice. This is the specific data point that really stopped me in my tracks. BMNR is holding around 3.5 million ETH.
3.5 million. Just think about that number for a second. To put that in context for you, that stake represents nearly 3% of all Ethereum currently in circulation.
3% of the entire global supply.
The entire supply. It is an astronomical, company-defining holding. It's why the analysts community immediately gave them a new nickname. BMNR is now widely known as the MicroStrategy of Ethereum.
It's a perfect comparison, really. MicroStrategy basically converted its corporate treasury into a single asset bet on Bitcoin.
Right, taking high conviction to a whole new level.
And BMNR is doing the exact same thing, just with Ethereum.
Exactly. They are betting that ETH is going to appreciate significantly over the long term, which would make their balance sheet look absolutely spectacular. They have gone all in on the viability of this one very volatile asset.
But this is where BMNR's bet gets truly fascinating because it has this powerful twist that MicroStrategy just doesn't have with Bitcoin.
And that key difference is yield generation, specifically through staking.
Right.
Unlike Bitcoin, which is primarily a store of value, Ethereum lets holders like BMNR generate passive income from their holdings. Staking just means they lock up their massive ETH holdings to help secure the network, validate transactions. In return for that service, they earn rewards.
So they're turning a static asset into an income stream.
Exactly. They're turning that enormous 3.5 million ETH into a powerful recurring revenue machine. This adds a layer of financial stability that's just not available to a big Bitcoin holder. It fundamentally strengthens their whole business model if, and it's a big if, they can execute the strategy.
So you've got these immense holdings, the huge potential of staking, and a market just waiting on pins and needles for this announcement, which is tentatively dated for around November 21st.
The pressure is immense.
It is. And given all that, analysts have broken down the possible outcomes into three scenarios, and what really stands out is the surprising optimism that's already baked into the stock price.
It really is surprising. The market has handicapped this with striking clarity. They see a 60% probability of a very bullish outcome, the rocket fuel scenario.
60%, that's high.
It's very high. The middle or base case sits at 30%, and they're only giving a 10% shot at the really damaging red flag announcement. The market is clearly leaning into the upside from staking.
Okay, so let's break down that market favorite, the bull case, the 60% probability. What would BMNR have to actually announce to justify that kind of optimism?
The bull case needs firm commitment, clear timelines. First, BMNR would announce they are officially flipping the switch on the staking strategy. They'd give a concrete start date, probably early 2026.
And a yield number.
Yes, and they'd have to project a serious attractive yield. Analysts are looking for 6 to 8% annually on that huge pile of ETH. I mean, that's guaranteed revenue on a digital asset.
Yeah.
Second, to show they're really confident, they would likely announce aggressive plans to raise a lot more money, $10 to $15 billion, specifically to buy even more Ethereum.
Wow.
That sends the clearest signal possible. The strategy's working, the execution is happening, and we are doubling down hard.
And if they pull that off, if they deliver that full bull case, what's the expected stock move?
Analysts are projecting that if they validate the strategy that clearly, it would cause a huge rally, probably a jump of 30 to 50% in the stock price. It would essentially reward investors for their patience through this 2-month delay.
But wait, if they raise another, say, $15 billion to buy more ETH, doesn't that just mean they're doubling down on the volatility risk they already have?
That is the core tension of their entire model. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
The bigger the position, the bigger the potential drop.
Yes. The bull case is inherently riskier because it means more leverage, more exposure to ETH price swings. But the market seems to accept this increased risk because the potential upside, that staking yield, is so powerful. The hope is that a recurring 6 to 8% income stream will eventually cushion them against some of that volatility.
That makes sense. Okay, so now let's move to the 30% middle road, the base case. What does a slightly less optimistic scenario look like?
The base case is basically cautious continuation. Here, BMNR confirms staking is still the goal, but they pull back a bit on the timeline.
So they delay it.
They might push the full launch out further, citing, technical readiness or, more likely, the need for more regulatory clarity. Their strategy would still be buying ETH on dips, but the fundraising they announced would be much less ambitious. They'd signal confidence, but they would temper expectations on the timing. It's a solid, steady path, and in that scenario, you'd expect a modest but still positive gain of 10 to 20%.
And finally, the one everyone is dreading, the 10% shot. The bear case, where the 2-month delay was, in fact, a massive red flag.
If the fears are confirmed, this is what sends the stock tumbling. In the bear case, BMNR fails to provide any clear timeline for staking. At all. Nothing. They might even issue these cautious warnings about ETH volatility, which would be a complete contradiction of their all-in strategy. And crucially, they would dramatically scale back or even cancel their fundraising plans. If BMNR shows that little confidence in their own plan, it just signals a complete unraveling of the entire growth story. It suggests serious roadblocks. And in that worst-case scenario, the stock could easily tumble 10 to 20% immediately.
Okay, so we've established that BMNR's execution really dictates the scenario. But let's step outside their headquarters for a second, because there is this one massive external force that dictates their fate, no matter how well they execute.
That's the elephant in the room. You could have the perfect strategic plan, hit every milestone, and your stock could still lose value, simply because of the price of Ethereum itself. ETH is the ultimate amplifier. It determines the final real-world impact of any news BMNR puts out. So if the stock gains 50% on great news, but ETH immediately drops 10%, well, that gain is instantly cut down. BMNR is so leveraged to this one asset that its future is governed by two things: their strategy and the asset itself.
And we have some specific examples of the sensitivity of just how extreme this leverage is. Let's take that best-case bull scenario again.
Okay, so let's assume BMNR delivers the perfect announcement. Staking timeline confirmed, huge capital raise, high yield. If, at the same time, ETH rallies 20% on broader market news, the stock could actually go past $110 a share.
So it's a compound
A
effect.
huge compound effect. Great execution amplified by a great market.
But now show us the other side of that coin. What if the announcement is perfect, but the crypto market tanks?
If BMNR makes that exact same perfect bull case announcement, but the price of Ethereum drops 20%, due to some regulatory panic or macro news, that perfect announcement only gets the stock price to about $65.
So it's a win, but a much smaller one.
Much smaller. The strategic value is there, but the massive balance sheet loss just drags the stock down. It shows how little control they have over the final outcome.
That raises a crucial question for anyone watching this. What's the actual level of sensitivity we need to be aware of here?
This is the most critical metric. For every $600 move in the price of Ethereum, up or down, BMNR stock could swing by $20 to $30.
Let me just repeat that. A $600 move in ETH.
Could mean a $20 to $30 move in the stock. It's an almost unbelievable level of sensitivity. It means the management team could execute their plan perfectly, but the stock is fundamentally at the mercy of the wider crypto market.
That truly captures the high stakes. Okay, the 2-month delay has created this intense anticipation. So what does this all mean for you, the investor, when the announcement finally drops? We need a clear, surgical checklist. What are the 5 critical items to immediately scan for in that report?
Right, we've established the stakes, so let's give you that essential checklist. And you have to look for hard data, not just optimistic language from the CEO.
Okay, first up, the very foundation of their valuation.
You need to confirm their ETH holdings. Is that 3.5 million ETH number still accurate? Or have they been forced to sell some of it? If that number has changed significantly, the entire valuation thesis shifts. It's the bedrock.
Second, the most anticipated piece of the puzzle, the income generator.
Scan meticulously for any language, even a tiny hint about a staking timeline. The market is desperate for confirmation. A specific date, a projected quarter, an estimated yield, any concrete language signals a move toward that bull case.
And if there's nothing?
If there's no timeline, that confirms the fear of the bear case.
Third, let's talk about funding. How are they paying for all this while they wait? Sustainability.
You have to look at the cash burn rate. Buying and holding 3.5 million ETH while running a business requires immense cash flow. So how sustainable is the operation right now without that staking yield? A high burn rate just increases the pressure for good news fast.
Fourth, the cost of their growth. How do they actually pay for that mountain of ETH?
We have to look for dilution. That just means, did they issue a ton of new shares to the public to fund these purchases? Because if they did, it waters down the value of the shares you already own. Even if the bet on ETH is right, massive dilution can really dampen your returns.
And finally, and maybe the most vital point, given the delay and those whispers of an accounting crisis.
You must immediately read the auditor's notes. A 2-month delay often suggests some kind of internal conflict or accounting issue. So for the stock to really rally, BMNR needs a clean auditor's opinion.
Meaning the auditors sign off on everything.
They sign off. They confirm the financials are solid, transparent, and accurate. A clean opinion instantly negates that major red flag worry. It is absolutely vital for market confidence.
That is a sharp and crucial checklist for anyone trying to figure out BMNR's fate when this announcement finally drops.
I think what's essential to grasp here is just the sheer magnitude of BMNR's position. They have pivoted their entire company into a single, highly concentrated, high-leverage bet on the future of one of the world's most volatile assets. Their strategy is really a masterclass in high-conviction exposure.
So BMNR has pushed all its chips into the middle of the table. They've transformed themselves from, a utility company into a highly levered proxy for Ethereum's success. Considering that potential 50% upside, balanced against the enormous risks and the gravity of this 2-month delay, the ultimate question for anyone watching this drama is really this. Is that a bet you would be willing to make?